Everyone has a story to tell. Some are happy, some are sad. Some are romantic, and others are traumatic. This is my story. It's traumatically sad. It was a bestseller book, The Dysfunctional Conspiracy, and it will be a miniseries soon. Let me start with a brief background. In 1988, I was hired to be the president of Standard Oil of Delaware. Then, in 1989, I married my wife Patricia in Cleveland, Ohio. It was an elaborate wedding in Cleveland's largest Catholic church. The family stayed in Cleveland to celebrate the Christmas holidays. And then Patricia and I packed a large U-Haul truck and moved to my home that I built on Longboat Key, Florida. We booked a 10-day honeymoon cruise to the Caribbean. Since the cruise was over the New Year's of 1990, my parents, right here, asked if we would mind if they came along. They promised to stay on the other side of the ship. And so, on December 28th, the four of us left from the port of Miami into the Caribbean. We returned on January 7th, 1990, to Longboat Key, Florida. My parents had built a very large estate on Longboat Key. On the north end of the island, about 7 miles away from my parents' home, was my house, much more modest than theirs, believe me. Just before 9 p.m. that night, my father stopped by the house to say goodbye. He was going to Montana on a business deal and to do some hunting. Hours after that, my family's life and my life came to an abrupt end. What you're about to hear are the facts and events of my mother's death and what really happened the night of the fire and weeks later. Are the facts and events of my mother's death from the fire and what really happened the night of the fire. Patricia and I just finished watching the 9 o'clock movie and went to bed being very confident that our return to our bed would give us some rest for a change. At about 1 a.m. the telephone rang. I sleepily answered the phone. Hello? Hello, Mr. Veltman. This is Lakeland, Florida operator. I have a death message for you. You need to call the police department. Do you understand? Huh? What? You need to call the police department, okay? Yeah, okay. Patricia rolled over and moaned to me. Who is that? I replied, she said she was an operator in Lakeland, and I need to call the police. What? Forget it, Patricia. Lakeland is 90 miles away from here. It's just my friends playing practical joke on us like they did the night of our wedding. Go back to sleep. We had just fallen back to sleep when the phone rang again. I looked at the clock. It was almost 1:30. Hello, Mr. Veltman. This is the Lakeland operator. You need to call the police department. Look, I don't know who you are, but I'm not falling for it, so quit calling me. No, wait. You need to talk to the Officer Michaels at the Sarasota Police Department. Do you have the number? By now I was fully awake. What I wanted to say was, yeah, I got it memorized. I call the number all the time. What I did say is, wait, I need to get something to write on. Here's lesson number 1. If the police want to talk to you, they're already convinced you've done something wrong. Once they talk to you, it's called intentional deception. They're going to try to divert you and ruin you. The Lakeland officer gave me the telephone number. A woman answered. Hello, Police Department, Longboat Key, Sarasota. How can I help you? Confusingly, I told her I was told by a telephone operator in Lakeland to call her and the Sarasota Police Department because they have a death message for me. What sort of death message? My mind shouted, what the fuck? Is this really happening? I replied, I don't know what type of death message. In my mind, I was thinking, what? Are there more than one death messages? Who is this? She asked. I'm Christopher Veltman. One moment, Mr. Veltman, as she put me on hold. It seemed like eternity. But about 3 minutes later, a man came on the line and said, Hello, this is Officer Michaels. Who is this? Christopher Veltman, sir. How can I help you? Again, I repeated the death message information. One moment, Mr. Veltman, and he put me on hold. 5 minutes went by. Mr. Veltman, you need to call Sergeant Kinch at the Longboat Police Department. Here's the number. Okay, I got it, Officer Michaels. Hey, what's this all about? I don't know. I hung up the phone and called the number. This time a man answers. Longboat Key Police Department, how may I help you? My name is Christopher Veltman. I was told by Officer Michaels from the Sarasota Police Department to call you and ask for Sergeant Kinch. One moment, sir. About 5 minutes went by, and then all of a sudden I hear, Hello, this is Sergeant Kinch. Who is this? Christopher Veltman. What he said to me next totally blew me away. Completely. Why are you avoiding us, Mr. Veltman? Huh? What? Where are you? I'm at home with my wife. Wait, we're coming to get you. And then he hung up the phone. I got dressed and I was trying to answer Patricia's questions, and there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, there were two large policemen dressed in black. One looked at me and said, Mr. Veltman? Yes. There's been a fire. Your mother's dead. You need to come with us. He didn't say, I'm sorry, your mother's dead. Nor did he say anything like, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your mother's dead. What he did is he just said, your mother's dead. You need to come with us. Stunned, I said, okay, give me a minute. And I shut the door. All this time I was thinking my dad had gotten into a car accident on his way to Montana. This is just wrong. I told Patricia I had to go with the police and to wait here at the house. I'll be back. Still asking me questions, I walked down the stairs and opened the door and left. I sat in the back of the police car, and these two officers in front. Kish looked back at me and said, We heard you were in Chicago on vacation. When did you get back? What? Mr. Veltman, why have you been avoiding us? We've been trying to contact you all night long, growled the officer. I haven't been trying to avoid you. And then I was totally lost for words. At our federal trial for arson, Sergeant Kish would testify that I just stared out the window and I didn't say a word. Sergeant Tully would testify that I was crying heavily and violently shaking, and he felt that I was faking it. Well, we arrived at my parents' place. Out the front door I could see inside. When we arrived at the house, they opened the doors to the police car and got out. I reached for the door handle, but the door wouldn't open. I looked around and I saw all sorts of lights flashing. There were several police cars and maybe 5-10 fire trucks. Next to me, where Tully was parked, there was a Salvation Army truck giving out coffee and food. Looking out the back of the police car, I could see yellow tape and TV camera trucks and people standing behind the tape. I sat there for minutes, before Sergeant Kish and two other people came back and opened the door. I got out, and Sergeant Kish pointed to a short guy and said, This is Detective Kintz, and this is Fire Marshal Monahan. They have questions for you. They introduced themselves, but neither offered them my condolences or a handshake. They just walked me over to the front door of my parents' house. This is looking into my parents' house at the front door. Where's my mother? I demanded. Detective Kintz said coldly, She's not here. Where is my mother? I want to see my mother. Again, Kintz said, She's not here. She's in the county morgue. Well, I want to see my mother. Monahan turned to me and said bitterly, You can see her after you answer some questions. Pointing inside the door, Detective Kintz goes, "What was over here?" The smoke burned my nose, and I just stood there staring inside the house. In my mind, I was thinking, how could this have happened? Then Monahan placed his hand on my shoulder, and while pointing inside with a loud voice, "We need to know what was over here." All I could do was cry. I sat there. I started to shake. Kintz said to me, "Well, we'll have to have the policeman take you back since you're not going to cooperate. But I want to see you at the North Fire Station tomorrow at 8 a.m. Do you understand?" These are pictures inside the house. Once again, I struggle out. I want to see my house, my mother, please. "They'll take you back to the house, your own home," said Kintz. When I arrived at my house, Patricia wouldn't stop asking me questions. I was in shock. This is my house in the dark. Sorry, it's not a good picture. I had no answers. We sat in the kitchen and Patricia tried to console me while we waited for 8 a.m. to arrive so I could go to my interview. From here, things got worse.